What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I'm going to be breaking down this Warriors versus Kings series that I can't seem to stop thinking about. When I take a look at every single series in the first round, this is the one that I think about the most. It's exciting. The two teams are from vastly different sides of the NBA sphere. They've had wildly different journeys to get here, and I think they match up in a way that's going to make for some incredible basketball. Plus, most of my timeline is consistently talking about this series. Some people think the Warriors are going to take away the upstart Kings' momentum in like 4 or 5 games. They think the Dynasty is going to prevail and that the Warriors are still championship contenders, while others buy into the fact that maybe the Warriors aren't as good as they've been in past years and that the Kings are finally going to be the ones that maybe end the Dynasty for good. Regardless of your opinion though, I think this is going to be a very fun series, so I decided I would go ahead and start off this week of breaking down the first round of the playoffs with this video. With that being said, I want to break down more of these first round series, so if you have any recommendations, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to get to the ones that y'all request the most. Let's go ahead and get into this series. To begin, I want to quickly give a summary of each team's journey to get here. Beginning with the Sacramento Kings, they've been the story of the season after last year, and in fact for the last 16 years, consistently missing the playoffs. They made a big move by acquiring Domantas Sabonis at the deadline, giving De'Aaron Fox another all-star caliber player alongside him. Now, me and many others kind of chastised this move. It seemed like a win-now move for a team that was nowhere close to, well, winning now. However, due to that addition, as well as additions like Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray in the draft, and bringing in new head coach Mike Brown, the Sacramento Kings have completely flipped the script, going from consistent playoff missing team to now a top 3 seed in the Western Conference, winning an absolutely stacked division that includes the Suns, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Golden State Warriors, all of which will probably be in the NBA playoffs, yet the Kings are the best, at least through the regular season, out of any of those squads, which I don't think anybody would have predicted before the season. A lot of people thought, okay, maybe they're a play-in team, but not having home court advantage in the playoffs, that felt like an impossibility. But because of the play of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis primarily, they're here. Fox was a first-time All-Star. He's probably going to win Clutch Player of the Year. He's gotten more and more efficient. He's gotten better defensively. This is by far the best he's ever been, and having him on your team is basically a cheat code when you get to the fourth quarter. Then there's Domantas Sabonis, who has established himself in many people's eyes as the 3rd best center in the league, only behind Jokic and Embiid. He's a high-level playmaker. He can knock down some shots on the perimeter, and he's a force inside, grabbing more rebounds than anybody else in the league per game this season. The two of him and De'Aaron Fox as well are just such a dynamic duo. If they run a pick and roll or a dribble handoff, it's basically impossible to stop them, especially because they're both kicking out to a plethora of shooters on the perimeter. Kevin Huerter, above 40% shooter from 3. Keegan Murray as well, and he just broke the rookie record for 3-pointers made in a season. Harrison Barnes knocks them down at about a 38% clip. Malik Monk is a big spark plug off the bench. Trey Lyles can knock down threes as a big as well. Davion Mitchell's a lockdown guard off the bench. They've got so many players that contribute to this team. Mike Brown has them playing some amazing basketball, and all in all, they're statistically, according to offensive rating, the best offense in the history of the league, which has carried them up to the 3rd spot in the West. Then we have the Golden State Warriors, and if the Kings are David, Golden State is Goliath. This squad is the longest reigning dynasty in the league right now, and one of the biggest dynasties in NBA history. They've won 4 rings since 2015, and since they've had Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Steve Kerr in the building all together, this team has not lost a playoff series in the Western Conference. Like, the only series that they've lost in the playoffs since getting that group of guys together back in 2015 is when they lost in the NBA Finals to the Cavaliers and to the Toronto Raptors. Otherwise, this team wins consistently regardless of who they play. And despite this being a pretty disappointing season, many people believe that this experience will ultimately carry them and that they're still contenders despite some of the flaws, which there are a number of them. They're really inconsistent defensively, especially on the road. They can't seem to get any stops whatsoever. They also just can't win games on the road, period, it seems like. They've had issues with injuries over the course of the year. They don't have as much depth as they typically have, relying a lot now on young guys who have, been to the NBA Finals last season, but didn't play substantial roles in that run, which now they're going to have to over the course of this run this year. So it's a bit concerning. Now, they did end up avoiding the play-in, which seemed like a possibility for them all throughout the season, but it does set up this series, battle of 2 California teams that I personally believe is going to be incredible. With all that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the biggest keys to the series in my opinion. And the first thing that comes to mind with these two teams are the defenses. In particular with Sacramento, while yes, they are a historically great offense, like I mentioned, the best offensive rating in NBA history, The defense is a big concern because at the end of the regular season, they sit as the 24th best defense in the league according to defensive rating, which isn't a surprise, I'm sure, to any of you. It's been a story of the Kings this entire year. The offense just basically outscores people while they give up a bunch of points in return. And this is especially a concern when you're dealing with the Golden State Warriors, who finished the season as the 10th best offense in the league. They're a bit inconsistent at times, but when the playoffs come around, they usually lock in. And I'm not betting against any team that has Steph, Clay, Draymond, Jordan Poole, as well as some of the other guys on that roster, to not be really good offensively. So having a terrible defense like this being Sacramento, it's concerning. How are you going to consistently get enough stops against Golden State to get wins, especially with Steph Curry? Who guards Steph, and what scheme does Mike Brown put in place to deal with him? Because you can't guard Steph Curry one-on-one. De'Aaron Fox is an improved defender and a solid one, but he's not going to be able to stop Steph, especially because nobody in maybe the history of the league has the off-ball movement of Steph Curry. He never stops running. So if you've got De'Aaron Fox chasing him around big-bodied physical screens, which the Warriors have been doing for years, all throughout the game, when it gets to the fourth quarter, when typically the Kings rely on De'Aaron Fox to take them home, he's going to be gassed. And maybe not over the course of a single game, but if this goes to like a 7-game series, and De'Aaron Fox has spent the whole time chasing Steph Curry around, he's not going to play up to his usual standards. He's just not going to have the same efficiency. His legs aren't going to be there. So you have to find some other solution. You have to diversify the looks that you give Steph. You could put Kevin Huerter on him, but he's not a phenomenal defender, and I think Steph would honestly torch him. Davion Mitchell, when he comes in, will probably get some of those matchups, but he is a bit smaller, and he can't play the whole game. You need De'Aaron Fox in there too. I'm not quite sure how Sacramento is going to stop Steph, but that is a big thing that I'm looking at, because if they can't find some scheme, Mike Brown that is, if he can't find a scheme to go ahead and at least slow Steph a little bit, it's going to be potentially over really fast. Meanwhile, Golden State isn't exactly a lockdown defensive team either. They finished the season ranked 14th in the league, which isn't terrible. But once again, when you're going up against a historically great offense, you probably need a bit better of a defense than that. So they're going to have to, like they've shown in the past, lock in a bit more to stop the Kings from absolutely destroying them on that end. But Sacramento is just so good at getting shooters open, at getting Fox downhill. The Warriors have a big problem with point of attack defense, especially against a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who can get downhill with ease, who is probably the fastest player in the league. Also, how do you stop Domantas Sabonis? Because the Warriors at times in previous matchups did put Draymond Green on De'Aaron Fox to try and slow him down a bit. But then if he gets the ball to Sabonis, does Kevon Looney have what it takes to stop Domantas Sabonis, who is one of the best interior forces in the league? Do they have to send a couple guys at him if a wing gets switched on to Sabonis? And if they do, he's just going to kick out to find the best shooter available, which they have a plethora of 40% plus guys. The Kings have the ability to tear apart any defense, especially a Warriors defense that's just kind of middle of the pack. However, the Warriors do have a saving grace in this department, because Andrew Wiggins is expected to be back for Game 1, and he is one of their better wing defenders. He's someone that I do believe isn't going to stop Sabonis in the post, but if there's a switch there and Wiggins is the one guarding him, he can at least give him a bit of a tougher time and force him to execute a lot more effort than some of the Warriors' other wings. You could also potentially put him on De'Aaron Fox, giving Draymond Green still the Domantas Sabonis matchup, and I think Wiggins could do a pretty good job. So locking in defensively is going to be critical to either of these teams coming out on top. Another thing I'm taking a big look at in this series is the Golden State Warriors' inability to win on the road. It's been one of the biggest narratives that has followed them all season, and for good reason, because they finished with a road record of 11-30. That's the fourth worst road record in the league, only behind the Rockets, the Spurs, and the Pistons, all three of which were tanking the entire year and are three of the top 5 teams in the draft lottery. The Warriors cannot win on the road. Now at home, they have one of the best home records in the league, so it's really a story of two different teams when they're at versus when they leave Chase Center. And so I do expect the Warriors to win most of the games when they are playing in San Francisco, but when they go over to Sacramento, are they going to be able to execute? Because as a lower seed, just by the numbers game, you've got to win at least one road game to take the series, if not maybe multiple, because the Kings have been a pretty solid road and home team all season. Now, to the Warriors' credit, they did get 4 of their 11 road wins this season over their last 5 road games, which is a sign that maybe they're improving, although it didn't come against great competition. Those dubs came against Portland, Houston, Dallas, and actually Sacramento, but that was a game where they were sitting De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, and Domantas Sabonis amongst others, so I'm not really reading into it too much. Even so, maybe it's a sign that the Dubs' road woes are dissipating. However, if Sacramento is able to take a game in Chase Center and suddenly force the Warriors to have to win 2 over in the Golden One Center in Sacramento, that's a lot of pressure for a team that hasn't really been able to execute away over the course of this entire season. So I think that's really critical, is for the Kings to win one of those early games and put the pressure on Golden State. Something else that's big we have to take into account is the experience of these two teams. This is an aspect that a lot of people are referring to on Twitter when they're picking the Warriors to win, because Golden State is by far the most playoff experienced team out of the entire field. Nobody has what they have, especially when they go up against the Kings, who as a franchise have not been to the playoffs in 16 years. Now, I will say they do have some guys with some playoff experience on this roster. Kevin Huerter was part of that Hawks team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Mike Brown was part of the Warriors dynasty for years, so he knows what it takes. Sabonis went there a couple of times with the Indiana Pacers and also back in his rookie season with Oklahoma City. So they've all been there a little bit, but they definitely don't have nearly the experience of Golden State. And if you're someone that believes that experience means a lot in these playoff series, you are almost assuredly going to pick the Warriors. I do believe it matters, so it is partially in favor of Golden State in this matchup, but at the same time, I think the Kings have enough talent on court to somewhat offset a lot of those concerns. Finally, I want to take a look at some of the individual matchups in this series. Beginning at the guard position, Steph versus De'Aaron Fox is going to be an incredibly fun one. Fox had the best season of his career. He was an amazing clutch guy. The question is, can he continue those efforts over into the playoffs? Is he still going to be as clutch as he was over the course of the regular season now under the bright lights? Will he regress a little bit, and can he still perform in the fourth quarter the way that he has if he does have to chase Steph Curry around the perimeter? Meanwhile, for Steph, is he going to be able to slow De'Aaron Fox himself, or are they going to have to use like an Andrew Wiggins or a Draymond Green to stop Fox from destroying their defense? Then there's the Draymond versus Sabonis matchup, where Draymond is a top candidate for Defensive Player of the Year this season, will almost 100% be on an all-defensive team, while meanwhile Sabonis will probably make an all-NBA team because of his elite offense. Will Sabonis be able to outscore Draymond's defensive impact? And if Draymond does shut him down, can Sabonis continue to operate the offense the way that he has out of the post, even if he isn't really scoring himself? Additionally, I think Klay Thompson versus Kevin Huerter is a really fun matchup to watch. They're two of the best shooters in the league right now, and both capable of having monster performances on any given night. If there's one game where one of them drops 6, maybe even up to 7 threes on ridiculous efficiency, that could completely shift the momentum of not just that matchup individually, but the series as a whole. It's also a series that centers a lot around the youngest guys on the roster. For the Kings, how is Keegan Murray going to perform? Is he still going to be the lights-out shooter that he was in the regular season? And if he is, that's a huge bonus for Sacramento. For the Golden State Warriors, how are guys like Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga going to perform, both of which are expected to have more expanded roles than they had during last year's finals run? There's also Jordan Poole, who did play a substantial role in the Warriors winning the title last season, but over the course of this year, he's been a bit disappointing with some efficiency regressions and some really bad turnover issues, especially in the clutch. Is he going to be able to stop doing those things in the biggest moments? Then to wrap things up, we have the coaching battle between Mike Brown and Steve Kerr. These two coaches know each other really well. They spent years on the same coaching staff over for the Warriors, Mike Brown being Steve Kerr's head assistant, and now they're facing off against each other in Mike Brown's first year away from that franchise since being a head coach forever ago. Does this maybe mean that Mike Brown has some inside information on the Warriors and how to slow them down? And after probably ending up as the coach of the year this season, can he help the Kings step up defensively in this biggest moment? For Steve Kerr, is he going to be able to have the Warriors flip the switch the way that they need to make sure that they avoid some of the issues that they faced over the course of the regular season? So that's my breakdown of some of the biggest keys to this series in my opinion. And now comes the time where I have to make a prediction, which is tough because I really don't know who's going to win. This series feels pretty evenly matched in my eyes, both sides of things that are in their favor. And for the most part, as people have been debating this series, I've been in the Kings' corner. I trust the offense. I think Mike Brown is an incredible coach, and I think that they're just hungry and ready to do whatever it takes to get this win in this series. However, the more that I think about it, the more that I consider some of the factors, like the fact that Andrew Wiggins is returning, that the Golden State Warriors once again have not lost a Western Conference playoff series since 2015. Even though they're incredibly flawed, I think ultimately Golden State will come out on top in this series, and I'm going to say that they win in 7 games. Yes, I think they end up taking a road game in Game 7 against the Sacramento Kings in Golden One Center. The fans are going to be loud, but Golden State fans can also travel pretty easily because it's right down the road, also in California. I think Golden State does manage to squeak out a series win here, but Sacramento is going to give them a lot more trouble than they realized that they were actually getting. Andrew Wiggins coming back is huge. I think they've got the capability to flip a switch, and they just really have no answer for Steph Curry, who I think could be in for a ridiculous series in this first round. Heading into the second round and beyond, I don't know how much success this Warriors team will have, but in this first round matchup, I'm ever so slightly leaning the Warriors, and I am going to officially predict that they win this series in 7 games. Kings fans, I'm sorry. I truly believe y'all can win this series, and there's a good chance that you do. I just don't know if I can bet against the Warriors in this scenario. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Please let me know in the comment section down below who you have winning this series and in how many games. And also, what are some of your biggest keys to this series that maybe I didn't mention in this video? Also, like I mentioned earlier, please comment other series down below that you want to see me break down over the course of this week, and I'll try and get as many done as I can. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Like I mentioned earlier, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It helps the channel out a ton. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.